Hello, crypto world. Welcome to the Chart Historian. My name is Justin, and on this channel, I delve deep into crypto charts, exploring chart structures, fractals, and patterns. So today I'm doing something new. I'm going to look at the gold chart, spot gold. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, based on this chart's structure, that it is a repetitive structure. Gold is a repetitive structure. I'm going to show you that. And by the end of this video, you should be able to identify what comes next on this gold chart. So I'm going to go back to the earliest point where I have enough data to actually do my type of technical analysis. So my technical analysis begins in the 1970s, and it will go from this time forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use boxes to show you the different parts of the structure, and that way you can easily recognize the structures as they play out. Okay, so here we are. Now, the reason why I'm starting at the beginning is because it is the beginning structure that sets the idea, the basic structure that is repeated throughout gold's history from here. So this is the original structure, if you will. All others are essentially going to be copies of this idea. Now, when I say copies, they're going to be copies that are slightly different. They're going to be unique in their own way, but the basic concept is going to be repeated. So let's kind of delve in and take a look at this. Okay, so starting with the A structure, we see that A basically consists of a move up, and in that move up, it has these waves as it moves up. And finally, this is kind of small, but it just kind of goes flat right here. So we'll want to remember those basic ideas that A has. So we move into B, and B begins with a sharp move up, and then it pulls back. It does this correction right here, and then it moves back up into the next fractal, fractal C. So C is basically a similar idea of B, but just a little more intense. It moves up fast, it drops fast, it's sharper, and then it moves back out of the fractal in a much faster, kind of sharper way than it did the gradual kind of move in, move out. So this is just a more kind of intense version of this. So the next one, D is basically it's the first peak. This is where gold begins to peak. It moves up, has a sharp pullback. So it is an E. E is where we begin to see the kind of the topping structure. From here, it comes to a peak, and then it begins to roll over. Now, I want to add a little bit onto this. I'm going to count the peaks on this E structure and on the F structure. So this is what it looks like. So in E, it moves up to peak 1, peak 2, peak 3. It drops. And in this case, it goes kind of flat with a little peak here, 4 and 5 before dropping. And it drops into F. And in F, there are 3 waves, 1, 2, and then a small little tiny wave down here at the bottom. So that is the full idea of the gold chart. It starts with A in a move up. It has these 2 corrective waves on the way up. In D, it does its first peak. E is where it comes to its final peak. It's the topping structure where it begins to turn over and move down. In F, we have a continuous kind of move down, or put it this way, it comes to a point where the full downward descent has come to an end, and after this, the cycle repeats again. So here we have A, and this time it's much more vertical versus the first time it was horizontal, but you still have the waves up, and just like the one went flat, this one goes flat, but in a much longer kind of way than the other one does. And that is typical with fractals. So when a fractal repeats, the timing, the height, and the depth is always going to be unique and original every single time it plays out, but the main structure should be echoed. So here we are in B. Now, the first time it had more height to it, more airtime, but again, it goes up, it pulls back, does that correction before moving into D. And in C here, sorry, before moving into C, in C here we have this move up, and this one is sharper. It's a sharper pullback before moving out of the C fractal. And here we have this wave up, but if you go back over here, let's zoom into this, you'll see that it's the same story here too. It has these waves right here, just on a much smaller scale than this time around, when it's much more exaggerated. Now, the first time it played out, it went vertical much faster. This one kind of slopes up and then drops. So moving on, we go to D, and D, remember, is the first peak. Well, this one really shot up there, and it got quite high. In fact, it actually got higher than E. And that also can be normal with fractals. Timing, height, and depth will all be original every single time it plays out. So it gives that ability for something to move up higher. So in E, this one is interesting. So it comes up to a peak. Here we have the first peak, the second peak. This time around, it just drops real sharp. And here is your third peak. And then it moves up, and you have your fourth and fifth peak, followed by a long kind of slow decline into F. So in F, you have the three waves, wave 1, wave 2, and that short little bounce of a third wave, just like it was over here. It's a little small compared to what this is. There you go, right there. So it completes the cycle with F, and it starts again. So what does A do? So A is the beginning of the move up with the waves, and then we go into B. What does B do? It moves up sharply, and then it corrects, does that little correction right there, bam, before moving into C. What is C? C is the same idea, just more exaggerated, sharper. So it moves down. It has this exaggerated, sharp version of what B is over here. What is D? D is the first peak. And just like the original time, it did not make it higher than E. So what does E do? E is where it tops. Where are we, folks? We are in E. Here is your first peak. Here is your second peak. Here is your third peak. So what comes next? E has 5 peaks. So you tell me what comes next. Now I'm going to show you from another perspective, and that is a fractal perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that original structure, the one that played out in the very beginning in the 1970s, and copy and paste. So I'm going to take this original one, A through F, and I'm going to copy and paste that same structure over here every single time it plays out. Now, the way that has to be done, because this was on such a small quick time frame, I'm going to have to match it to the times that come after this. So in other words, with A here took a long time compared to this time, so I'm going to have to adjust the timing on when I copy and paste it. It was also, the A here got much more airtime than compared to here, went much higher, faster, so I'm going to have to adjust for that. Once those adjustments are made, we should see some commonalities. The wave up, it comes up to a flat point before moving into B. So let me show you what this looks like when I copy and paste these fractals onto the other part of the chart. Okay, so here is the original structure, and here is the copied and pasted structure onto what comes after. So we've copied and pasted that original structure. And in doing so, I have to, so here is one part of the structure right here. I've matched it. It comes up, and then this time around it does that flat thing much longer. It moves into B. B has that correction with the dip. So as you can see, it does match. Now, some parts had to be stretched, some parts had to be shrunk, but overall, they're doing the basic same thing. They move up when it's supposed to, it moves down when it's supposed to, it moves back up when it's supposed to, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, the structure, while it is different in timing, height, and depth, the overall basic idea is being repeated as it continues to move along through time on the gold chart. So here we are. Here it moves up again. Let me zoom in just so you can get a good look at it. So here is F with the waves. Again, so this wave right here, I had to adjust it. I always try to get as big of a sample as I can, but if for instance, this time around, this was not the same as the other time around, so I have to adjust this move down and up right here to this timing, height, and depth. But as you can see, the overall basic idea is being repeated over and over again. So that brings us to where we are currently, right here in E. So again, you tell me what comes next. And you need to be aware that the unrealized portion of this structure, the timing, the height, and the depth is unknown. But we do know that this is on a 3-day candle, so this is a slow-moving chart. It's going to go through these structures. It's going to take time to go through these structures. We don't know how long they will be. They could be drawn out. They could be shorter. We'll see how it plays out. But overall, we can zoom in, and you can see what is likely coming down the pike, some version of this. It's going to be unique as it does it, but overall, it's going to be this idea. And when I say unique, like look at here. This has this little bounce right here. Look how exaggerated it was this time around. But it's the same idea, the same bounce playing out. Well, folks, that is my presentation. So it is my belief that the gold chart, spot gold, is a repetitive structure. Ever since the 70s, it's been repeating this structure. It's repeated it several times. I've showed you through the box method the different fractals that exist within this structure. I've shown you the different peaks that exist on some of these key parts where it turns over. And I've also shown you how this structure, with copying the original structure onto what comes after, is indeed the same idea playing out, albeit with a different timing, with a different height, and with a different depth being materialized every single time it plays out. So based on this structure, you know what is coming. I read the comments, so if you have any comments, any thoughts on this presentation, I'd love to read them. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I will try to respond as best as I can. If you found this video interesting, it'd be much appreciated if you hit that thumbs up button. And you know, if this type of technical analysis is interesting for you, there's no one else doing this in YouTube land. So if you find this interesting, I recommend you hit that subscribe button. I will continue to follow this chart as it develops. I also have a lot of other stuff on crypto. You can watch my previous one I did on the Dow Jones. I cover the dollar, the DXY. None of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm so glad you caught this video. I hope you catch my next one. Have a great day, and bye for now.